It's TK Friday, and today in the Joy of Editing, I'll be doing a full edit of a flower image. I'm calling this one a dance of pink and white. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday, and it's time for another full edit. This image comes to us today by me. I titled this image a dance of pink and white. I think this flower is referred to as a spring beauty. I'm not 100% on that. If you know the name of this flower, let me know in the comments section below. And as always, you can download this image as well as the PDF notes for this full edit. I'll have Dropbox links in the description below this video. Don't forget to click on more to open up that description. Scroll down through and you'll find the links for the image as well as the PDF notes. And if you want me to edit one of your images on a TK Friday, scroll down further, you'll find a contact me. Click on that, contact me, and we can discuss doing one of your images on a TK Friday. During the month of February 2024, there's a site-wide sale going on at the TK web store. You get 25% off everything. There's a new video out by Sean Bagshaw. This is a launch sale. It's called Iceland Highlands. I highly recommend that you pick it up. But anything you purchase, you'll get 25% off. But use my promo code DK15. It'll get you the 25% off during this month only. Then it'll go back to 15% off. But when you use that code, you're supporting the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And for that, I thank you. As always, I start out here in Lightroom. I'm using a linear profile for my camera. It's an EOS 5D Mark II. Shot this with a 300mm lens. I really like the 300mm lens for flower photography. I put some information up on the screen. You may want to pause the video and read through that. And again, I start out with a linear profile and basically click auto and make sure I'm not clipping my whites and blacks. And I really adjusted the white and black points, so I had some room on the left and right. I don't like to make my flower images too contrasty, and I really want to go into Photoshop relatively flat and do all my adjustments using the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. And then for detail, I used the enhance feature in Lightroom to get rid of a little bit of noise that I had. This was shot at ISO 400, so not much noise. Did a little bit of basic sharpening, and then, as always, under lens corrections, I check on remove chromatic aberrations as well as enable profile corrections. I also did a very slight crop on this image. And I also want to point out, once I took this image into Photoshop, you see right here, there's some blemishes on this flower. Any blemishes I took care of with the remove tool. When you download your image, it will have all the blemishes gone, so you don't have to mess with that. And now at this point, I would just right click on the image, go to edit in, click on edit in Photoshop 2024, but I'm already over there and I'll see you in 1 second. And here we are in Photoshop, ready to get started with the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Hey, a little heads up, somewhere down the line during this edit, I'll be using some frequency separation. I have this ugly brown spot back here. We'll be taking care of that with the frequency separation, so you don't want to miss that. Well, we're going to start out, as always, with balance and contrast. And what we'll do is we'll come up to the multi-mask panel, click on the luminosity button. We're going to use, as always, Midtones 3 just to protect shadows and highlights from clipping. We'll output it right to a color grading tool. We'll start out with midtones. I'll click on the midtone button, and I just want to open up the midtones a little bit, just somewhere right about here, like a +12. And now I'll click on the shadow button, and we'll darken up the shadows a little bit just to add a bit of contrast in the shadows. And I'm going to take this back to -23. Let me shut this layer off by clicking the eye. Here's before and here's after. So we're off to a good start. Now, as I study this image, I think I have too much saturation in the green. Now, this is just my vision for this image. Yours may be different. So right now I have a color grading tool in front of my multi-mask panel. So I'm going to click the X. And what I'll do is click on the color mask button, and a color picker comes up. And I want to get this color, I think, right here. Click OK. And now you can see we're targeting the green tones. Now what I want to do is take this slider here, refine this a little bit. This top slider, I'm going to drag it to the left. That'll give me a little bit more yellows in here. And let me try this slider if I take it to the right. Nah, not much is happening there. Let me try this a little bit more to the left, right there. Now you can always click this button to see the image, to see what you're affecting. Okay. So I'm going to drag this in. I was looking right in here, so I'm going to drag this in just a little bit to right about there. I think that's going to be good. Now we can brighten this up by dragging this brightness slider to the right, and we can lighten that up to somewhere right about there. I think that's going to be good. And now you see this right here, this area of the flower, the pistil, I believe that's called. We're going to take a black brush, so let's click on this black brush right here. Make sure you're at 100% opacity. I'm at 50, so I'll type my 0 key. That's the shortcut to get me at 100%. I have a nice soft edge brush on here, and all I'm going to do is just paint this off. Even right here, I'm just going to paint that all off. Okay, and I think that's going to be good. And now we can output this to a hue saturation adjustment layer by clicking this button. And now I want to decrease that saturation, so we'll take the saturation. Now remember, we're only targeting all the greens back here. So we're going to take this slider and drag it back to maybe right here, a -31. Now we also have a lightness slider. I'd like to darken this up a little bit back here. Not much, but a little. So I'm going to take the lightness slider, and we can drag this to the left. Over to like right there, a -19. Now let me shut this layer off. Here's the before and here's the after. See how that just tones down that green and darkens that background down just a little wee bit. Now as I study the image, I'm looking at the pink on this flower right here. I don't really care too much about the pink here because I want my viewer to mainly be looking at this flower. So I want to bring up the pink on this flower. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add another hue saturation adjustment layer. So I'm going to click on this button right here. It adds a hue saturation adjustment layer. And I'm going to really pull up on this saturation, and it's going to look ugly. And you're going to say, what are you doing, Dave? Well, you'll see here in a sec. I'm going to take this up to like an 84. And I know that really looks horrible. But what I'll do is click this button on my combo panel and put a black mask on there, and that will hide it. So now what I want to do is target the pink here, so we can use a color mask to do that. So I'll click this button, and what I'll do is sample some pink in here. Let me move this down. I think I sampled when I was making my edit the other day, this pink like right in here, and we'll click OK. Now we can refine this. I'm going to take the brightness slider, and let's go ahead and brighten up the light areas. Okay, like that. Now what I want to do is work with these two sliders here just to hone in on that pink. So let me see if I start to pull this into the right. Yeah, you see how the edges are getting darker around it? And also I'm looking in this area here. I believe this is a pistil. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'll take this slider. There's some reds in there, and I'll start to drag this to the right. You see how I'm picking up some of that? Maybe right about like that. And I think it's light enough. Now, I don't care about these other flower petals here, just this flower right here. So what we're going to do is output this black mask white brush painting through a selection, and with my brush I'm going to change my opacity to 30%. So I'll type my 3 key. That gets me to 30%. That's the shortcut. And then what I want to do is I'm going to paint one time over here, one time over each one of these pink stripes. I'll stay away from these stripes because they're behind this flower. We'll get this one, we'll get this one, and we will get this one and this one here. Now, I think I'm going to drop down to 10%. I'll type my 1 key. And any one that I think I want to bring up a little more, I'll go over it again, like this one for sure. I'll hit it a second time. I'll get this one more time. That one's pretty pink, and maybe just up in here a little bit, up in there. And I think that's pretty good. Now, what I want to do next is go into the center of the flower here and bring out some of this color in these guys in here. I think they're called styles, but this is the pistil area, but just the red area. I just want to bring up some of that color. I'm at 10%, so every time I lift my brush, I always tell you this every week, and paint again, it'll give you a stronger effect. So I think that should do it right there. Now let me go ahead and shut this layer off by clicking on this eye. There's before and there's the after. But you see, I'm only targeting this flower right here, and I think that's going to be good. Now, if this pink is not pink enough, or you need to reduce the saturation of the pink, just come to the saturation slider. We can increase it by moving this to the right, or decrease it by going to the left. But I think that 84 is pretty good. I might just go up to like 86. I mean, this is the way I interpret this image, but you may interpret it an entirely different way. My goal here is to help you with your entire Photoshop editing process using TK9. Now look at that flower. I'm going to shut this layer off. So here is before the adjustment and here is after. But see how your eye is going more into this flower, which is what I wanted to do. Now I'm still studying this flower, and you see these light areas in here. Let's bring those up, and that'll draw more attention to the center of this flower. And we can dodge that to lighten them up. So what we can do is come up and let's try a zone mask. Let's click on this zone mask button. And I'm going to sample like right here and click OK. And now, it's targeting those areas really nicely. And what I'll do is I'm going to refine that. I'm going to take this slider and move it to the right a little bit, watching that area. See how it's tightening up a little bit? And I think like right about here, 182. Now we can further tighten by moving this in like so. And I think maybe right to about here. And now we can increase the brightness like by moving this up. And I'm also interested in these little tubular areas. And I think these are the styles. I'm not sure what these guys are called in here. But now what we can do is output this to a dodge tool. And now the dodge tool has two sides. And I say this all the time. The left side is 50% gray. The right side is a transparent pixel layer. You can use either side. And there's merit for using each side. And I'll do another video at some point explaining that. But let me click right here, and that'll output it to a 50% gray layer in the overlay blend mode. Now, at this point, we are going to be painting through a selection with a white brush. So what I want you to do is we can really zoom in. See the plus button here? We can zoom in. Keep clicking it, and we can make that larger and larger. Let me click it one more time. I think that's going to be good. Now, what I want to do with my brush at an opacity of 20%, right now I'm at 10%, I'm going to type my 2 key, that gets me to 20%. And so up in here, I can just start to paint and lighten these guys up. Isn't that cool? And so we just want to lighten. And remember, every time you lift that brush, you'll apply more of that lightening effect. Lift and paint, I should say. Lift and then paint again. And then what I want to do is make my brush smaller. I'm just going to use my left bracket key, make it smaller. And be careful here because there's light areas in here. I'm just going to paint on some of these areas here, like in here, and just to lighten them up a little bit because I think that's going to be striking when we look at it. Like right in here and here. But zooming in really helps. And we do have the mask that we made, so it is protecting us. But be careful here. Let's get here. Okay, and we can even get down in here a little bit. I'm lifting and painting a few times as I go over this area here. Maybe I missed this one. Let's get this one over here. And now if we click this button, we can zoom to fit the screen. And now let me shut off my dodging layer. Here is before dodging, and here is after. Again, before and after. And if I'm too strong, I can take my opacity and pull this back a little bit. I don't want to get too strong here. I'm just going to come and paint on this guy a couple more times. Now that I'm zoomed out, I can look here. Again, I have that tiny little brush in here. Okay, so I think I like that. Here is the before, and here is the after. And I think that looks good. And now as I study the image, you see these petals up in here. They're a little light. This is too light down in here. So we could take care of that. We can burn those down a little bit. As long as these petals are not clipping, we can burn them. If they were clipping, we wouldn't be able to use the conventional burn tool, at least in the blend mode that it's in. But I'll save that for another video. But these are not clipped, so we can definitely burn these down. And again, I'm referring to the very light areas. So let's go and click on the luminosity mask button. And this is a lights 1. Here's a lights 2. I'm trying to isolate these light areas. And let's try a lights 3. Lights 3 gives me really nice isolation. Now I can refine that with the levels adjustment. So I'm going to click this button. And what I want to do is take this highlight slider and drag it over to the left to somewhere right around here. And now let me tighten the shadows up on that a little bit. I think they're right there. See, I'm just trying to isolate these light areas in here. Let me take the midtone slider and just drag it over just a little bit to lighten it up a little more right there. And now we need to output this. So we're going to click on the left side of the burn tool. That's going to give us a 50% gray layer. We are painting through a selection, as you can see by the selection indicator. And right now I'm at 20% opacity, and I'll make my brush larger. I have a nice soft edge on here. And let me try 20%. Let me see if that's going to be too strong. No, that's going to be okay. So I'm going to paint over there. I haven't lifted the brush. I'm going to paint on here, paint over here, on that, this little area right in here, down in here once. This one's really light, so I just painted one time on there. I may give this one another hit right here and right down here. Again, when you see me paint again, I've lifted my brush. And let me give this another paint and paint like that. And see, let me shut this off. So here is before and here is after. Again, before and after. But see how that just tones that down? I might get these guys one more time up here. Right there and there and there. And this guy again down here. I just want that tone down. I don't want your eye going there. That's what I'm shooting for. I want your eye going to my star, this flower right here. Again, one more time. Here is the before and here is the after. I like it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a TK action. If your TK actions aren't open, click your TK button on either the combo or CX panel. I'm going for soft pop here, so let me click on soft pop. And what soft pop does is it enhances the contrast, the detail, and the saturation. It gives it a nice pop of all three of those elements. Now, right now it's over the entire image, but I only want it on my flower here. So how can we do that? I'm glad you asked. On either the combo or CX panel, you're going to click this button to select your subject, which should be that flower. And it does a really good job. Now, it's missed this area right in here. So what I'll do is type L to get my lasso tool, hold my shift key down, and just circle around there and add that to the selection. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but it's pretty darn good. And now at this point, what we can do is let's save that out because I'm going to use this again, this flower selection. So if we click this button on our combo or CX panel, we can save that. Let's just call it flower and click OK. That'll save it as a channel. You see it right down here, flower. And now let's go to our mask calculator. That would be the layer mask calculator, which we'll find it right here on the combo or CX panel. Click it. And right now we have an active selection, so we could click active selection or we can click flower. It doesn't matter. We'll both get the same results by either one. So let's click on active selection and let's click this button to apply it. And voila, just like that, we have just the soft pop on the flower. Now we can still see the marching ants. We can go ahead and click this button and deselect. Okay, so let's check it out. Here is before soft pop on the flower and here's after. But now our eye is really going to this flower. We pop some detail, contrast, and saturation. And next up, we got to get rid of this ugly brown in here, and frequency separation will come to the rescue here. Now in TK9, we have two different frequency separations. We have one in our actions, and then we have one in workflow extras. So I'm going to click on workflow extras. Now I'm going to do something a little different here. But first off, let me show you. See where it says Start FS, Start Frequency Separation? You want to click this to start. It's going to build a group and add all the different layers that it needs to work with. I'm going to teach you a little trick here because I did this the other day and I just clicked Start Frequency Separation. Around this area over here, I was getting some black outline here that I had to take care of with a clone stamp tool. I had to stamp a layer and get rid of it in the lighter color mode. And it was a real easy fix to do. But I'll show you something that Tony showed me the other day. This is a little hidden feature here on both frequency separations. If you hold your Command or Control key down and click on Start Frequency Separation, or in this case, just hold your Command or Control key down and click Frequency Separation, but I'm using this one. So I'm holding the Command or Control key down, I'm clicking this, and median comes up. It handles edges better when you're dealing with color. It's really great. I didn't have to do any cloning when I used this, so we're going to click OK. And next what I want to do is, you'll notice we have all these different buttons here. I'm not going to go over these today, but you have Restore Texture, Heal Texture, Remove Texture, Clone Color, Add Color, and Restore Color. I'm just using this one button today, Add Color. And a color picker comes up when you click that, and I'm going to sample this color right here and click OK. And now I'm going to start to paint in here with like 50% opacity. If you don't have 50%, type your 5 key because I'm going to build this up slowly. Now, however, I need to protect this flower. Remember when I saved out that flower channel? What I need you to do is hold your Command or Control key down and click on this flower channel. That loads it as a selection, but we need to invert it because right now it would only let us paint inside the flower. So come to this button on the combo or CX panel. This will invert a selection. This invert button will invert a pixel layer. You want this one in brown. It inverts a selection, so click that. Now we can see the marching ants, and it's going to let us paint in these areas and protect the flower. We can hide the marching ants by clicking this button on the combo or CX panel. We still have a selection, as you can see right here. And now we can simply come here and start to paint. And I could come over the flower. I don't have to worry about that, right? Because it's protected. All right, so that's one pass. I'm going to come here and paint again with that 50%. And now I might even come down here and Option or Alt click and sample this color and just paint in here and blend some of this up in here as well, maybe like that. I'm going to come over here, Option or Alt click and paint over on here. And there's some brown here I missed. I'm going to paint that one more time. I did lift my brush there. And okay, and that gets it. And I don't have that little ugly black outline around there, which is really nice. So let me shut off the frequency separation layer. Here's before and here's after. But doesn't that look so much better without that brown back in there? And now when you're done with frequency separation, you can click Finish FS. When you click this button, it closes the group and resets any tools that you've used when using frequency separation. And now I still have a selection here, so let's go ahead and click this button and deselect it. I'm done with frequency separation. I can close down my workflow extras by clicking on this X. And now, as I study the image, I would like to blur out that background a little more. So you see this button right here in the multi-mask panel. This is really nice. If you hold your Command or Control key down and click on it, it gives you a depth map. And basically what a depth map is the different shades of gray are the different areas in the focal plane of the image, okay? So this black is what's closest to us right here. I tried using this depth map just the way it is, but there's not enough separation. You see, like certain leaves are black. There's not enough separation. I wanted more blur, so I tackled it a different way, and I'll show you how I did it. We can work on these depth maps. We have brushes here. We can paint on them. We can click this button to see the original image, but here's what I'm going to do for this unique case here. Come back to Channels, hold my Command or Control key down and load up that flower selection right like that. You see that? And then on the combo or CX panel, I'm going to click this button. This is the fill button. I want to fill this with black. Now you can see the flower is filled with black. And now I want to invert it, and you'll see why. So let's click the invert button here to invert the selection. A depth map works with these various shades of gray. So I decided on a shade that would be closer to black, which would be like 50% gray. I just took a chance on it, and it worked perfectly. So what I'm going to do is click this same button again for fill, and this time I'm going to change this to 50% gray and click OK. So now I have this black flower silhouette on gray. And now this is very important. You need to deselect this selection by clicking this button on the combo or the CX panel. We need to deselect it. And now you see this button right here, Save as Channel and Open Lens Blur Filter. So we're going to click this button. This will take us into the lens blur filter. And you'll notice here's our depth map. And see that background is blurred. We're really done. That's all we need to do. But right now, we're in the set focal point mode. You see that little cursor right there? If I click back here, this is the area that would be in gray. Notice how my flower goes out of focus, and this area comes into focus. But now when I click on my flower, which is the black area, it'll come into focus. Now, you can adjust the focal radius here, and I think 50 is perfect here. I don't want this to go real soft, but if I drug this over to the right up to 100, this would get real blurry and it would look very unnatural. But I think at 50, it looks good. If you want less, you can drag this to the left. If you want more, drag it to the right. Again, you're the artist and it's totally up to you. But for my vision, I like it here at 50. And now, right now, you'll notice here at noise, It's at 1 by default. There's a little bit of noise here, and I got rid of the noise at the beginning of this edit in Lightroom. Remember when I ran Enhance on it? So I'm going to drag this to 0 and not put any noise on that. And I'm not going to mess with anything else here. Really, this radius is the one that adds the blur. You see here where it says shape, it says hexagon. This simulates a diaphragm from your camera in the out of focus areas of the image, and you can adjust the blade curvature and rotation there. I don't really use that. The radius is the blur amount. The brightness and threshold deal with specular highlights, which I don't mess with at all. And sometimes I'll use a little bit of noise, but that's it. If you notice any banding in this out of focus area, it's because I'm in the faster preview rather than the more accurate. I'm going to click OK, and you won't see any banding in that area. If you do see banding, it's due to the YouTube video compression, but I don't see any banding whatsoever. Well, let me shut off the lens blur. So here's the before lens blur, and here is after. But isn't that nice? It really just makes us, again, look at this flower, which is what I want. And next up, I'm going to do a freehand vignette. So I'm going to type L to get my lasso tool. And all I want to do is kind of make an organic shape around this flower, something like this. And then come to your TK actions, click your TK button if your actions aren't open. If they're open, click Freehand Vignette. A Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. It defaults at a 30% opacity. So let me shut this vignette off. Here's before and here is after. And I like that. I'm not even going to mess with Edit Blend If here because I don't think I really need it. But I like that vignette. I have one more step, and that is to just increase the exposure on this image a little bit. So just come over to the TK9 Multi-Mask panel and click this button, which is the exposure adjustment layer. And all I want to do is click this field for exposure. That highlights that amount, 0.00. Hold your shift key down and click your up arrow as you're holding your shift key down. That'll take you up 1/10 of a stop. That's 1/10 of a stop. Hold that shift key down and click the up arrow again. That's 2/10 of a stop. And that's all I want. I think that's good. I really want to protect my lightest lights. So to do that, Edit Blend If. So we'll click on the Edit Blend If button. And all I want to do here is click on No Lights 1. And that protects the lightest lights here. So let me shut off the exposure adjustment layer. Here's before and here's after. Just that little bit of an exposure increase. Now let's take a look at the overall before and after. So I'm going to come to my combo panel and click this button, which shows us the overall before. So here's before, and now here is after. And I really like these results. Well, there it is, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this full edit of this flower image today. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please give it a like, share it with your friends. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please subscribe. Click that bell notification icon. Click all so that you'll receive all notifications. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today on The Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. And I will see you all right here next time. But until then, happy editing.